everybody, this is Preeti. I am so glad you're joining me today. Today I'm going to use some designer papers to create some cards, and I'm not doing any coloring today. I'm adding colors using just the designer papers. I've just taken a few that I've had in my stash for a long time, and I think we all have a lot of designer papers. At least I do. I hoard designer papers and never use it, so I thought this would be a great opportunity to use designer papers. And what I'm doing is I'm taking one of these designer papers here, which has some beautiful rainbow colors in them, and I'm going to take this mini slimline die, which I have not separated, and I've gone ahead and die cut that, and that gives me those frames of different sizes. I'm going to pick up one of the smallest of the frames, and I've also taken a top folding white note card for this card. This is a very simple card here, and I'm taking this stamp set with carnations in it called Brighten Your Day, and I'm going to stamp that using some VersaFine Onyx black ink onto a white cardstock. Now, the reason I'm not doing any coloring today is, as you can see, I have a brace on my hand. My carpal tunnel has been really inflamed and it's been hurting me a whole lot, and coloring has been quite difficult for me to do of late. And I thought, what better way to use these designer papers for coloring in this particular style of card making. Anyway, so what I did is, after I stamped that, I also embossed it using some clear embossing powder, and here you can see I'm just going to use that frame and add that floral stem to the frame, or offsetting it on the frame a bit. Before I adhere anything or add any foam tape, I do need to add the sentiment. So I'm choosing this sentiment here, which is also from the same stamp set, and I don't remember what it reads. Anyway, it has a small strip, and then it has, I think, for a great friend. So I'm just going to stamp the friend in this within the box of that colorful frame here. So I'm just going to place all the elements and make sure I have it in the right place. And then what I do is, before I stamp it, I'm going to close off the smaller sentiment which says for a great, and I'm going to just stamp the friend. So I'm doing selective stamping here, and I'm just going to stamp the friend onto that placement where I decided within the frame. And once I'm done with that, now it's time to adhere the frame. And for the frame, I'm just using some foam adhesive. And again, as I said, it's a very simple card, but the flower has enough details in it to make it make it look beautiful even in black and white. And the only pop of color is that paper that adds that the beautiful pop of color. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, so I'm just going to adhere that frame just around that sentiment, and then I'm going to place the flower. Again, the flower too, I just needed to place foam adhesive in places where it was sitting on the cardstock and not on the frame. And where it was sitting on the frame, I just added liquid adhesive. And then once I was done adding the adhesive, I just placed the flower, and then this remaining sentiment from that same sentiment, I actually embossed it onto a black cardstock using white embossing ink, and I'm just adhering that on top of it. You can really separate your sentiments to create different forms of that same sentiment for your card. And then all that was left was to add some gemstones, and here you can see the completed card. Now moving on, I just want to show you one more card here. This is a little bit a step up of the same paper piecing style. So I'm just taking 4 different stock designer paper here, and I'm using the pink one here and the teal color for my flowers and the stems of the same stamp that I used for the earlier one. So the pink one, I'm just going to concentrate on the flower part, and I'm going to just stamp that using black onyx Versamark ink again. And I'm just going to rotate the paper 3 times, 90 degrees, and then I'm going to stamp it 3 times, because I just need quite a few flowers, so it was easier to just stamp, just keep rotating. And MISTI always helps. If you have a stamping tool, it always helps to do these kind of things. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the stem, but this time I'm just flipping the stamp and concentrating more on the stem area of the flower on the steel paper. And here you can see I've stamp them all. And then I'm using that same coordinating die cut, and I'm going to die cut these elements once more. And once I've done die cutting, I'm going to separate the flowers, the pink flowers, to individual flowers. And it's very simple. All I did is just took my fine detailed scissors and I just snipped it around the flower a little bit. Just needed a little bit of snipping and separations from the stem, because I'm going to adhere this flower over the teal stem. So you can see that paper piecing happening to create that floral image. So I'm just going to speed it up here in a bit, and here you can see I'm just stamping it all, separating it, and here they've all been separated, and all that was left to do was to put this card together. And to put this card together, I'm also going to take that other designer paper that I showed you earlier. This one, it has a little bit of a wood grain pattern on it, and I'm taking this thank you stamp from the stamp set called Colorful Vines, and this thank you has two parts to it as well. It's thank you for your kindness. Thank you is in script, and for your kindness is in typewriter form. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to first stamp the thank you directly onto the base cardstock. I'm just trying to position where I want that stem to be, and then I'm going to just stamp this first time directly onto that card. Not on the card, on the designer paper with the black ink. And then I'm going to place the stem after I'm done stamping here. Then I'm going to place the stem part of it, and I don't have a repositionable glue, so I'm just using a post-it tape here to hold my image there, the die cut image there. Then I'm going to stamp it once again in that same place, and I'm not moving my stamp, if you can see there on my MISTI, because I want to be able to stamp it exactly in the same place as I stamped earlier. Now I'm going to place this the pink flower, which we separated earlier, onto that stamp where the flower area is, and I'm going to again hold that using a post-it tape here again. If you have a repositionable glue, it definitely helps to hold these elements. Anyway, so I'm just going to stamp, and you can see every time it stamps in the same place. And once I'm done stamping, I'm going to remove all of these, and now it's time to add adhesive behind them and adhere them to the panel. So I'm just going to adhere the stem portion of the floral image directly using some liquid adhesive, making sure that it aligns with the stamp, with the sentiment that we stamped earlier. And then the floral portion of this sentiment of the stamp, which we cut in the pink designer paper, I'm going to add foam adhesive and pop them in their respective places, just to add some extra dimension. And that sentiment now looks like it's a part of that flower, part of everything, and that's the reason why I took that extra step to create the sentiment, giving that sentiment a dimension as well. And I'm just going to repeat this process again with my stems and my flowers in 3 different places. So here again I'm using the cluster, the 3 cluster, and on the top corner there I'm just using the largest of the carnations, just to give it that I like images to be in 3s, so just to give that a visual triangle look, I just added 1 more carnation on the top of it, on the top corner. And then again I had gone ahead and stamped and embossed the sentiment on a black cardstock, the second part of the sentiment, which read "For your kindness," on a black cardstock, and I'm just adding foam adhesive just in places where it is directly on the base, or white base, or the wood grain base. And then I'm just placing it underneath the thank you sentiment right there. And then once I was all done, I flipped it and I cut those extra overhangs. And once I was done with cutting that overhang, it was time to assemble. So to that, I just took this darker pink designer paper and I adhered that directly over a white top folding note card, covering up the entire note card. And then I placed the second layer, that is the floral layer, not offsetting it, like centering it to that pink layer. Just adding some liquid adhesive, not adding any foam tape here because I've had enough foam tape for the flowers, I wanted to keep the base pretty flat. And then after I was done with that, all that was left to do was to add some gemstones. I chose some really clear with a little bit of sparkle gemstones, and here you can see the finished card, and I'll show you the first one that we created earlier as well. And I really hope you'll look into your stash of designer papers and create some paper piecing cards. And I really hope you enjoyed this video. Here are some closer looks of these cards that I created, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.